Okay, not sure if this thing is going to work, but I wanted to make a tape for your book, Grandfather Remembers, and the reason I want to do this, I find my writing's not clear enough to read sometimes, and even try to print, and it's not too good either. And that also I can add so much more by talking that I can't always put down on paper. So I'm going to try to go through this just like it's in the book. And so the very first thing is, you know, my parents is the first page, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I didn't know where they met or when or where, so I can fill that out. Yeah. You come to the page as a boy. I pretty much covered there where I lived and where my room was and all those things. My jobs around the house, for instance, was cleaning the house and scrubbing floors, going to the store, mowing on, just like I've written there. But there was other things I had to do also. I was usually doing the dishes an awful lot. Sometimes Bob would share them with me, and we'd take turns wiping or washing the dishes. We didn't have dishwashers in those days. And as far as hardships, that's on that same page, sure, living through the Depression. My parents never knew when they were going to lose their house because they couldn't make their payments, and it was difficult from that standpoint. We didn't dress real well when we went to school, but my dad did manage to continue to work, I guess. I don't think he was ever laid off completely. He was a bank teller, I think, most of the time, and did a little accounting on the side, maybe to get his head out of water. And as a student, this is on this page, I said graduated from college with a Bachelor of Arts degree, which is true. I went on to Ohio State, and that was at Kent State, and I went on to Ohio State and worked on a law degree because I wanted to get in the FBI. I really never had an intention to practice law. And anyhow, I found myself trying to graduate from law school and working full time, and I worked nights, and I just couldn't cut it. My grades, I never flunked anything, but my grades were below the acceptable average, and to stay in law school. And I filed an appeal, but I gotta get the phone here in a minute. I guess that's what happens when you do a live broadcast. You get interrupted. But anyhow, I was talking about going to law school and the difficulty I had there, and I did file an appeal to stay, but I forget, I couldn't get back in because you had to bring my average up so high, and I rather than even try to waste another year, I decided not to, and I had always wanted to play ball and stuff like that, and I always thought I could play professionally, and I didn't want to continue in school. I was pretty old because I'd been in the service, and getting into baseball as a rookie would be very difficult at my age. And So rather than try to appeal and get back into law school, I decided I'd better get a job. And again, it was a shame because I never really flunked anything. I just didn't carry the approved average. And again, a lot of reasons for that, I suppose. One was I worked, and another was that a lot of GIs had come out of the service and went into college, and they had to thin them out. And the same thing when I tried to play for Kent State's baseball team and their basketball team. They never really gave me a chance because they had hundreds of players out there, and they just didn't give you a good look. And I know I was good enough to play in especially the baseball team because a lot of the guys later on that did play come in the AA league in Akron where I played and weren't really good enough. The rest of that page, I don't have anything to add to it. You know, there's so many things that you cover. You could talk forever. But we did have a lot. I think sometime they said there was something like 30-some kids on our block back in those days, and we had a lot of fun. We lived on 8th Street there, and all those. We used to go over to neighbors' orchards and steal apples and grapes and sit out in the curb at night and eat them and throw the grape hulls on the street. And the neighbor was a guy named Loftus, who was a real great guy. He knew he was taking them. He didn't care. He had a lot of money, and he was just glad, I guess, we probably got this stuff. He used to let me come over to his place and play tennis with his son. You know. He had a nice tennis court. And, of course, in those days, hell, we was lucky to have anything. We played ball. We played in the street. But then, you know, the next page there is talking about as a boy, one of my favorite things and all that. It's pretty much just made up. I don't, you know, have like Spencer Tracy and Catherine Hepburn. They were great, but I didn't say that, you know, that they weren't better or just as good. Or just in the spur of the moment, you say what you can. Laurel and Hardy was definitely my favorite comedy team, and as I think it was yours. And I don't think anybody ever equaled those guys. Then I guess the rest of the stuff, as far as my spare time and spending my summers, is summertime. Back in those days, we never had money to go anywhere or take vacations, so we had to stick pretty much around our neighborhood. I've told the times, I don't know where I told you, we used to have gangs, and one time when my brother and I and a guy named Eddie McDowell were coming home, the rival gang grabbed us and put Eddie McDowell, my brother, in a manhole down a sewer and tied me to a tree, Indian style. And fortunately, I don't know how long we was like that. I couldn't get up and help because I'm telling you, you're sitting on your legs, bent behind a tree. You can't get up, and I couldn't reach a limb or anything to pull myself. I was just nothing but a trunk. It's a real difficult situation, but finally, Ray McDowell and Eddie's brothers come along, got me free and got them out of the sewer. But that's the type of things we had when we were kids. Like I say, we had to play on the street all the time, played kick the can and any games like that. In the summertime, we'd draw circles in the snow and play games. There's nothing else that I could, I guess, comment on. I said I worked, I don't know what it says there, but I did sell newspapers. I went from door to door selling them. I sold them on street corners, extra, in the middle of the night when there was something happening. Because again, there wasn't television then, and people relied on their newspaper. And I remember very vividly when Amelia Earhart was downed in her plane and found missing. It caused an extra, and we had to go out in the middle of the night. Extra, and people would come out of their houses, and we'd sell them a paper. But other than that, I had a regular paper route that made money, and also would still sell on a street corner in Cuyahoga Falls at the corner of Portage Trail and Front Street. That was one of my corners. I don't know. I got there, the major news event of my time. Now you go over stuff I get it. Naturally, murder of Marilyn Shepard was one, but I was married when that happened, so I'm sure there was, things like Amelia Earhart and Will Rogers and all those people that were killed and so on. It was probably major news events that probably didn't affect me as much as the Marilyn Shepard case, but still I was older then, and as a young man they're talking about here, and I don't know what that means. It's all relative, I guess. But as you know, I did officiate a lot of sports, both baseball, basketball, and football, and even tried a little wrestling and soccer. Or not, well, I did go out for soccer. I never actually quit soccer and volleyball because I didn't understand the way they wanted the rules interpreted, I guess. The rest of the stuff there, I served my country by being in the Army, of course. Might be some... it's not... But... what do you remember most about those years? Naturally, being wounded, you would. The story of me and Constant, that little 7-year-old boy I met in Luxembourg, and so I've had as you know, gone back to Luxembourg quite a few times and reacquainted myself with Constant and his organization that always rolled the red carpet out for me and still do to this day. As far as Roosevelt, I guess he was everybody's hero back in those days because, he started the NRA, get us out of the Depression and got there a postage stamp cost there and a movie and a gallon of gas. And I know it's interesting over here on the opposite page it says gas 25 cents. That's what I remember it to be. It might have been lower than that at one time, but I can remember Dad could stop and fill up a tank and wouldn't cost very much. Couldn't believe it. Now, you're talking on the next page about I met your grandmother, Esther, and we worked at Wilmot Electric Company, and Wilmot was a guy I hung around the Stowe Fire Department. And I'd go out on occasional fires and stuff, and I really wasn't a volunteer. I just hung in there and could help him. I'd go out and truck with him and so on. But Wilmot used to come in, Mr. Wilmot, Leo Wilmot was his name. He'd come in and horse around. He got things for the guys at the fire department. And he was a character, and one of the captains in the fire department asked him if he had a job for me. I don't know why he got tired of seeing me around there. I knew I needed one because I didn't have any money. I was a poor guy. I had parents that were gone, and I was starving to death actually during the summer. I wasn't in school. It was between school years, and couldn't find a darn job. I did everything. I grubbed trees and did about everything you can imagine, just a couple of days at a time, trying to make some money from different people, pulling wells and whatever. And anyhow, Wilmot gave me a job at an electric company, and Esther worked in the office. That's where we met. And I don't believe that we dated at all that year. Then the following year, as soon as I knew I was going to get out of school, I wrote in advance to see if he'd have a job open for me for the summer. That way I'd have a job as I got home from school, and he did, and I went back, and the job that I worked before, which is in shipping and receiving, had been filled by somebody else. So he said, well, you can work in the office with Esther. And I said, with her, not on her. He kind of had a crush on Esther. I know he did, and he watched her like her father, you know. I don't think he actually liked the idea. We started dating, and I'm not too sure Leo was very happy about that. But anyhow, that's when we started dating. And we'd go to move and go out to eat. We had a favorite place. We went to get hot fuzz sundaes, called Bill's, and we'd go from there over to a place that had the greatest Coney Island hot dogs. And it was almost a ritual with us. As I look back, I think as a young man I accomplished a lot. Well, I'm not quite sure what I'd mean by that. I did do quite a bit, worked at so many different jobs and did a lot of officiating, and of course had gone to school, so I guess in the Army it all counts. Now we go to the next page. About engagement. I don't know, we never really had an engagement. Esther, as you know, came from a big family, and none of them were college educated, and they always kind of looked down on me, I think, and then too, most of them were very competent in using their hands and doing about anything, carpentry or bricklaying or whatever, and I, of course, had no technical bringing at all, and I couldn't work on a car even, and these guys were pretty good at all that. So that kind of made him look down on me, I guess, and that plus the fact they felt that thought I was better than they were because I'd gone to college and had a degree, and I don't know if that's true. I felt that way, and then later on, of course, I got along with them a lot better. I said there that when asked Grandma Mary why did when I said in there that I'm ready to settle down, tired of living a sleeper, and boy, that's so true. I was so damn tired of going from sleeping room to sleeping room, and trying to, stay in school, get a little money in between, and it was really tough. But I always said if I get married and get out of this situation I'm in, and as I said, I married her because I owed her money and wanted to cancel debt. Well, it's kind of a joke, of course, although I do admit that my sister graduated from high school, and it was just shortly before we got married, and I didn't have any money. We had to buy her a gift. We bought her some luggage, as I recall. Esther paid for it, and she paid for half of the ring. So I say that I really married her to cancel the debt. But we didn't have a big wedding, of course, just a wedding in a preacher's home, and her parents, my parents were there, and there wasn't anything big about it at all. In fact, it was very small. And it's good as far as I'm concerned. And what you wear and stuff like that, I think that's stupid stuff. We never had a honeymoon, as I put in here. And now we go on to the first year of marriage, it says. You know, we laughed many times about our first apartment. It was on the 3rd story on Brookdale Avenue in Akron, and we used to climb 3 flights of stairs. And I'm telling you, we'd come home with groceries and try to get up those stairs. About the time we got on that last, we'd be laughing so hard, we'd stumbling and falling and dropping the groceries. It was a real riot. And back in those days, I only made $250 a month. I did get car expenses. They paid me so much a mile. And it wasn't a lot, even in those days. I guess it was average, I don't know. But and of course, Esther worked. And as far as I did some of the cooking, I kind of taught her a lot of it. And my buddy Fred, who I went to law school with, that lived nearby, and he'd come over all the time. He bought us a cookbook we still have downstairs, big Betty Crockett cookbook, and he wanted her to cook some damn meals. And of course, as you know, she's become an excellent cook. And my first car was an old 53 Chevy, nothing fancy. As I recall, it was green in color. And of course, we took no trips, we had no money, and down there where it says the fondest memory, she locked me out of the apartment. That's an interesting situation. Esther had, during the afternoon while I was at work, this is just my recollection, she might correct it, but she had a guy come to the house and had tried to sell her baby pictures, or pictures for, and she signed up, I think. She invited me to come back at night, I guess. I think this is the way it is. When I'd be home, when I come home, she told me, I said, we don't have any kind of money. What are you doing? Booking in 2 years and ahead, you're tying up and so on. We had an argument about it. And so when the guy came then, I had a basketball game to referee that night, and I said, I'm sorry my wife wasted your time by coming over, asking you to come over here because we ain't buying any pictures. Well, anyhow, that really made her mad, man. And I guess that's the time that, I don't know whether my sister was there, but my sister was staying with us, I think, at the time, just visiting, not staying there. Anyhow, I went to the basketball game, and I come home, and my sister and Esther were gone. And at the bottom of the stairs, the last flight of stairs, the door locks, and I automatically locked it, not knowing that they were home. And when I got up there and found out to it, I forgot all about it. And so when she came home, she thought I locked her out, and I had just plain ass forgotten it. And she was naturally quite upset with me. I think this is the way it all went, the way I remember it, I guess. I don't comment on the rest of that page. I was working as a claims adjuster when you get to my occupation here, and my job was evaluating claims, of course, and I eventually stayed with that job and was changed from Underwriters Adjusting Company, who hired me and started me in my career, and I left there and went to the Westfield companies, and later became responsible for all the casualty claims in the United States, and was assistant vice president in the litigation department. It's a job of great responsibility. I had to decide whether we pay a claim or not pay a claim, whether we should defend it, and attorneys to hire and keep track of all the claims and the attorneys and the suits, and it was a lot of work. I did kind of enjoy it once I got in that position, because before, when you were a claimsman in the field, you go on vacation, come back, and all those files that came up on diary, and it'd be laying on your desk, and it would just make vacations unbearable. Well, when I got into the litigation and the home office, you'd diary files, but you'd diary them ahead of your vacation, so that when you come back, they would come out one at a time or something, or two at a time. It was a great responsibility. That pretty much takes care of my occupation, and that was my job most of the time, and it helped. We did very well. Then they got a page here about I'm a father. I guess I was in when your mother was born, and a lot of this information I got second-handed, but most of it there about how she had big tears. I never forget that. I used to call it big tears. And that situation of falling off a rock I mentioned there is, it's really, I got it on a home movie, and I was taking it, and Steve really kind of pushed her off. But I remember that. I said, oh, she didn't get hurt in that, but she didn't. It was a big rock, too. I don't know. There's nothing else to comment on that, I don't think. We always called your mom Wiener, because I don't know, short for Lauren Levine, I guess. My childhood, my child growing up, of course, you can pretty much remember that you went to Isham, and I guess I have showed interest in sports, and I guess you were in wrestling. I don't know. Maybe I got. Oh, I guess this was Lori. I don't know. It should be you. It's your book. How'd I get on that? Lauren Levine, full name. I don't know. I got off on that one somehow. No, that's right. Lauren, my daughter. Excuse all that mumble jumble there, but yeah, okay, Lauren, your mom. Yeah, she went to Isham, you know all this stuff. So she did like sports. She never played any in high school, that is, on any of the high school teams. But she always used to comment, as I got down to the bottom there, that the boys wouldn't let her join them in the sports. And that came true when we moved to where we now live, and the kids in the neighborhood would get together and play ball and wouldn't let her play. The rest of the stuff I have to pretty much, relay her feelings. That, she didn't like to clean her room. She was supposed to, and she did a lousy job when she did. Linda would be in her room for about a month, and Lori would be in there 5 minutes, and Lori just did a terrible job cleaning and so on. I don't know. I have there where she began, when she started dating. I don't know for sure. I mentioned a couple of instances where she got in trouble, which are self-explanatory. And as far as the guy she met with the red-haired boy. I don't even remember him much, but I remember how it was such a shock to Mom and I both that she'd like that guy or even date him. But I think she only did date him once. I think we weren't too unhappy about the fact she quit, I'll tell you that. Your parents met, and I guess Mike and Laura, you met in high school. Esther told me they were playing cards at lunchtime. I didn't know that. They got married here at our home, Mayor Hall down in Richmond. Married him, and we had a very small affair with Mike's parents, and there wasn't very many people here. Oh, you get around to your birth, you so when I first heard the news, I got drunk and tried to forget. And said, "What an ugly kid, looked like a baby squirrel." This is all on that page. Actually, of course, none of that's true. It's just writing something in here. I think you did have messed up feet, though. I'm not sure of that. He was a little bow-legged or something, knock-kneed, something. We'll go and carry on now. First holiday shared with us when our family gets together. And when we all got together, it says the first holiday was Groundhog's Day. I don't know, that's because you were born in January, I guess. We always recall the time I forgot when we had to leave the hotel in Quebec City because of the fire, and you remember vividly the way I was dressed and made fun of me and stuff like that. And I mentioned there also on a trip where you tried to get a picture of a guy that looked like Scott Wood, and I also mentioned the time when you get on an elevator and say, "Okay, we're going to have a meeting now," and somebody you mentioned something about somebody not paying his dues or getting away with the dues or something. The elevator would stop on the floor, and the guy would get off, and then the door would close, start on up, and you'd say, "Well, we now know who it was," and stuff like that. Really a great sense of humor. And of course, that's probably one of your great assets. You have such a good sense of humor. Of course, when you became an Eagle Scout, I think that was a very important thing in your life. I think you've somewhat faded from your commandments, your deeds and so on. They're supposed to fulfill. But nevertheless, it was quite an accomplishment. And also, I got here, you're going through basic training in Oklahoma, and that has to be quite a compliment. That's tough to do. We got to go on a lot of trips together, because you know Clark, and I couldn't begin to say all the places we went. I know we had good times going through Nova Scotia and looking at all the different siding on the houses, and in Quebec City and Toronto, and we just had a lot of good times. We went fishing up in Canada a couple of times together, and it's just been a lot of fun, because we always kid each other quite a bit, and it's interesting. I think that that I don't have the photographs that you want in here, and I skip over to holiday traditions. And frankly, I don't know. Holidays are a chore anymore. We used to have when everybody was younger. Mom just loved to get everybody together and cook. And she always cooked so much nobody could eat it all. I used to bitch about it all the time, wasting food. We'd have to eat it for 2 weeks thereafter. But she loved that. She loved the kids coming home. And she loved everybody being there. And of course things have happened, and it's not happening anymore. In fact, Mom and I'd kind of like to get away and not have to face all the problems that the family has developed over the years. But those days were great. There's no doubt about it. And of course, we've had, I mentioned, a close relationship to Roy's family and Letha. And of course, when Letha died, that stopped that. But we don't get together as much as we used to. We don't go back and forth with families as much as we used to. And my brother, of course, is so far away and comes once in a great while for a week or so. And Esther's family's still around, but we really don't associate with anyone anymore much but Althea. Our travel, I guess that's what it meant, travel. My first trip, Esther and I's first trip was to, and I guess this is what we're talking about, was to the Pocono Mountains in Eaglesmere, Pennsylvania, and we had saved our life almost to have a trip, and this was more or less like our honeymoon. We never had a honeymoon, and I was 33 years old, so I got married as 20, so this is 5 years after we was married. And anyhow, we went to Eaglesmere, Pennsylvania. We saw it, and they had a real nice brochure, and it was said in the Pocono Mountains, you know, and it said go canoeing, play in the tennis courts, or walk through the gardens of rhododendron and fabulous dining, and it was just sounded like the greatest place in the world for a couple who'd never been anywhere. So we go for a week, and I think we had to pay in advance, seems to me, send the money, and we get driving up that way, and I kept saying, boy, we're getting awful close to Eaglesmere, Pennsylvania. I haven't seen one sign said anything about that resort there. And I said, you'd think there'd be signs all over the place. And we kept going, and finally we get there, and it looked like hell. That's what it looked like. It had an awning with the main entrance out over the main entrance. It was really weathered and falling apart, and the whole place looked like the devil. And we walked inside, and boy, immediately you could see it was like being in an old age home. Everybody's sitting around like it was on their last days, and they talked about how much entertainment they had done at the theater and stuff like that. But anyhow, we go in and we go in the lunchroom and had dinner, and that was a very good place to eat. I have to say that the meals were fantastic. And we go in the lunchroom, and our first day there, or dinner, it was the dinner in the evening, and the waitress come over and took our order and everything, and served a meal. Anyhow, during the meal, she says, you know, you people don't belong here. She says, this is for old people, no young people here. And that was a hell of a thing, you know. imagine how we felt after spending our only money we ever had to go on a trip and then run into this. So then we went down to the bar. It was in the basement. We were the only people in the place except the bartender. Says to the bartender, "Where's all the young people?" He says, "I don't know." And he said too that it wasn't people like us. So we went up to the manager, up to the desk, and asked about the young people and all that. And they said, "Well, they're probably down at the theater." Well, that was bullshit. There wasn't. I'm not even sure there was a theater. But we walked down to where you're going to take boats and stuff, through the rhododendron tennis court. Tennis courts had weed come up in them, and walks were hardly walkable. The bushes were hanging over the place. And to get down to where the boats are supposed to be, there was oar boat there, and I think a canoe and a boat up on the side, holes knocked in them. It was just a horrible situation. Well, next morning, needless to say, we tried to get our money back, and we had a little hassle, but we had to get the manager in from his home. It was on a Sunday, and he reluctantly paid us back. We showed him the brochures we had, and they had some right there in the lobby, as a matter of fact. And he had to admit it wasn't true. So he did eventually. Then we had to just start driving down the road and stopping here and there, and really, it was a different situation, different vacation. We had no reservations. Just took off and decided to go south and went down in, as I recall, and ended up in Richmond for a day or so. I don't know. Stayed up in the Poconos and in other places for wealthy people only, but we had a good time. Except I was driving a little Volkswagen Beetle and pulled up this fabulous hotel in Buckingham, what was it called? Buckingham Palace. I don't know, it's not quite right, but anyhow, it was for rich people, and all these caddies and Rollses and stuff in there, and I pull up in a little Volkswagen, and then we went to dinner that night, and gripe, you had two people. I think you tipped before you ever got to the table, and then of course you had to tip at the table. The meals were expensive and all that, and so we got up and left early in the morning so we wouldn't have to have breakfast there and go through all that again because we didn't have the money. And anyhow, we ended up going down to Richmond and different places and back home, but sure ruined our one and only vacation, or whatever you want to call it. My most adventurous trip, I got to Luxembourg. Well, it was adventurous from the standpoint that I was being honored as, a GI. It was during the Battle of the Bulge in the war. And, of course, my friend Constant Georgian, who was a little boy I met there, was instrumental in my being there. And all the people that belonged to his organization and the SIBA organization, which was the first one I was the guest of honor for. And they sure took care of GI. I still do to this day, as you know. I've been back several times, and every time I'm really wined and dined, and red carpets out, and give you the awards and the ribbons and stuff. It's really, really nice to be remembered like that. The funniest thing I have here is ending up in the roof in a hotel in England. That's you heard that story many times, but I'll repeat it here for austerity. We checked in this old hotel. It was a nice hotel. It was very old in England. wasn't in London, small town. I don't know the name of it anymore. It's a material, but it was an old hotel, very classy hotel. And we go into our room, and you go through the door off the hall, and you go into a room that's not your sleeping room. It's like a waiting room or an anteroom room. I don't know what you call it. But then you go through another door, and you're in your bedroom, and that's where the bathroom and everything is. And anyhow, during the middle of the night, Esther says, it sounds like somebody's alarm clock's going on shut off. And I woke up when she said that, and I listened to a while. I said, that could be a fire alarm. So I go, you couldn't hear it very well until it got out to open that anteroom door to the hall, and it was quite obvious it was a fire. So I said, there's a fire. So I'm looking around for my socks to put on, and Esther said, we gotta go. Well, anyhow, we get out in the hall, and instead of, there was an exit right near us that we didn't even see. We got way the far into the hall, as you can imagine, in any big hotel, and go down that exit. And we ended up coming out on a roof. And some guy yells at us, are you all right? And Esther says, is this a fire drill? He says, man, we don't fire drills at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then we had to get out an old iron rusted fire escape and take it down to the crown and get out. And it was just a minor thing. Time we got around where everybody else was, the fire truck was about ready to leave. Thank God we never would have got out of the place if it had been a serious fire. Places I visited, Esther and I, as you know, we do a lot of trips, and I haven't been up in the Northwest. Still have aspirations of doing that, and maybe along with Alaskan trip, because we haven't been to Alaska either. Everybody goes to Alaska.